Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a couple of games from the NVEST community that just absolutely shocked me. Recently there's been a competition running around inside NVEST where who can get the most experience and who can get the most damage over, I think it was the month of June. But yeah, my word, we're already starting to approach the end of July. Where is this summer going? It's just absolutely disappearing. Look, now that I've put that existential crisis and dread of the gloom and the doom of winter is coming, right? Well, hopefully we're going to have a little bit more summer or autumn before then, right? Maybe a lot of you are actually looking forward to autumn. I personally really like autumn. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm born in the autumn. It's just that kind of like sleepy period before things start to get really crazy around the late autumn / winter time, and you kind of just relax and just take a deep breath, and the days get shorter, more time to be able to stay inside and have some great games of World of Tanks, like Sigurd is going to have here in a double helping of NVEST gameplay. So Sigurd is playing in their Griller. This is the tier 10 German sniping tank destroyer, and they are using a very sneaky position here, sitting at the back of the map, and usually tank destroyers get not very much value out of here. But what you're going to see is that Sigurd will actually flow through this battle by, you know, setting up that initial ambush to be able to destroy that object 268 earlier, and then using this platform here to just crunch these heavies from playing around the outside. Wow, disgusting position this is. And the ever accurate Griller able to get, well, at least a lucky shot there, what looked like right through the mantlet of the 60 TP. But that was lucky and unlucky at the same time. Lucky to be able to penetrate, unlucky to only roll for 579 out of the 750 that this vehicle has. And the T-125 comes around the corner, and oh, juicy days. The Sigurd is already up to 3,600 damage in the first couple of minutes of this battle. So you might be thinking, NVEST, what is NVEST? Well, NVEST is a clan which the glorious, don't forget about our Lord and Father M4, who will guide us to hopefully some high damage games throughout, right? Set up, and I became affiliated with, and now have an absolute wonderful time. I've played maneuvers with NVEST the last couple of seasons. We've gone from getting a tank for 7 people to getting a free tank from maneuvers for 28 people. Looking for next maneuver season to target more than 28 people. I'm hoping that we can get half of the clan a free vehicle. The clan got the top 100 badge of clans that participated in maneuvers, and considering that we've only been around for just about a year now and only really started seriously as maneuvers a couple of times, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen. And with great players like Sigurd being the backbone of the NVEST community, it was really fun for me to see just what kind of wild, crazy games the NVEST community have been having over the summer period. And Sigurd won the damage competition. So just how high this is going to be and whether it's able to top out my all-time best damage of 11,250, which is going to have to wait and see. And that's pretty terrifying to think that the clan would be having games just that might absolutely smash my all-time record over in just a single month, right? Whereas I feel like I've at least been sweating in this game for God, I have to keep looking at the year to try and figure out, nearly 15 years in 3 months that I first played World of Tanks in the closed beta of October 2010, baby. But yeah, just by setting my new records as the game goes on, I wonder if it's because I'm playing more, or if it's because I'm playing better, or if it's that the player base is getting worse, or hopefully a culmination of those things. I think it's probably that if you just kind of, it's like the rule of whatever, a billion monkeys or whatever, or a monkey like writing on a typewriter for a billion years, eventually it's going to write Shakespeare, right? Well, even I've managed to have an 11,000 damage game this year. So let's hope I've got a few more years left in me and a few more monkeys, right? So Sigurd, having dealt some significant damage from the back of the map, realizes that with 4 minutes past, it's time to get forwards and also now try to extend some view range and also try and get some shots in. And he probably quite rightly knows that if that Leopard sneaks across the south and gets into that corner, artillery dead, tank destroyer's dead, everyone's dead. And so in a vehicle like this, it's not enough to just be that kind of like full-on sniper, right? The vehicle is devastating as a full-on sniper, but you've also got to try and get yourself into a position we can also still try to influence the battle. Now, you can influence the battle by just doing a huge amount of damage at the back of the map. When your team starts to melt, you don't have any medium tanks, especially in a matchup like this, where all of your medium tanks, bar one, that leopard, have managed to get themselves killed quite quickly into this game. Then the rapid, fast gorilla can be able to take that responsibility for themselves. And with a premium consumable, along with some good crew skills here and the field mod, that means the gorilla is going to have enough view range to be able to spot out people at half decent distances. This vehicle, so much better with a premium consumable than without. On my free-to-play account, I have to drop an entire piece of equipment to use coated optics because I just really don't get enough view range without. No, that's one of my biggest gripes and one of the biggest differences as to what you can do with a premium consumable in World of Tanks. Just how much more flexibility it gives you. It can either give you a whole extra piece of equipment, or it can allow you to switch a field mod from going one way to going the other, for example, which can make a tremendous difference. So it almost is like having a whole extra slot of equipment on top of that 5% bonus that's going to make everything. And when I say 5, I'm not mincing my words here. I know that the food consumable is 10, but the way that it actually works is the 10 will basically become about like 4.5 or 5% all-round improvement to practically every aspect about your vehicle. The only things that aren't going to improve are things like alpha damage, although that's up for a little bit of a fly in the ointment of that argument now, that something like shell tuning is actually improved, and you might improve the alpha damage on average of your gun by 1 by using a premium consumable if you are somebody who elects to use shell tuning. And they won't improve things like the armor, and they won't improve the penetration, although again that could be up for debate as well, as you're kind of lowering the top end and the bottom end of shell penetration now, which adds consistency. So unless you're not just firing and just praying that that shell will be able to go in and just hoping that you're going to roll like 66666 to be able to penetrate the enemy vehicle, because that's how unlikely it will be for some of those margins of the penetration of the plus or minus 25%. But there are some tanks and some things that premium consumable don't really improve. And I look at some of the most heavily armored vehicles in the game as being some of the best tanks to play free to play, because the premium consumable doesn't improve the thickness of your armor, although it doesn't improve your mobility, and it will improve practically everything else about the vehicle as well. But at least that's one thing that the premium consumable isn't going to improve. And oh god, am I giving wargaming ideas about no, let's not go there. Let's just move on. World of Tanks has been in a rough state recently without kind of like memeing about possible disastrous changes. But oh baby, you've got to love that 0.27 base accuracy. Interestingly, Sigurd's decided to use a bond rammer on this vehicle to really get those shells out, and to use a rotation device in conjunction with the level 2 experimental turbo, which means they're going to have pretty good gun handling as well. The only thing that I would like possibly Sigurd to do is maybe, if they've got snapshot on this vehicle, which I hope they do, maybe take the snapshot directive as well, double that effect, and it's almost like using an extra vert stab on this vehicle with regards to turning your gun to the left and the right for those snapshots. I personally, on this tank, love to use an exhaust to really try to give myself a little bit more of a leeway and an advantage when it comes to staying hidden against my opponents, or even just managing to go into a bush sometimes and avoid getting spotted by some pesky medium or light tank that maybe is using a vision system. But there's different builds, you know, for different players. And Sigurd, whether they're going to need that bond gun rammer because they're going to be firing on reload, well, maybe later on in this replay, we'll have to take a look. So Sigurd hasn't even taken any damage now, up to 7,000, and is going to go after this IS-4. The IS-4 fires first, but Sigurd hopefully is going to connect a shell into that lower plate. Guaranteed kill there, as 750 can't roll that low. And another frag fished for their team, and the first frag for Sigurd. And man, talking about fish, can we just take a moment to appreciate how awesome this style is? Everything from the marks of excellence being like little hooks on the barrel there, to the sound that it makes, or the fact that the reel, I believe, actually spins when you fire in this tank. But I'm usually in first person when I'm firing, so you don't manage to get to see it. Man, this is a style done well, and I would love to see styles like this just being available in the premium store the whole time, because this is just perfect monetization. Creativity, fun creativity from wargaming, and this is the kind of stuff that deserves to be financially supported from the player base, hopefully outside of gambling inside loot boxes, right? Okay, now Sigurd finds themselves in a 3 versus 5 scenario, although with 2 artilleries, it's 1 tank and 2 arties versus 4 tanks on the enemy team. And Sigurd very narrowly misses the opportunity to be able to shut down the concept. Although, hopefully, you know, with this concept just managing to rock their turret up there, Sigurd's going to shut them down and doesn't even get spotted, which means that more mistakes might be made, and that's exactly what you want inside World of Tanks. Although, considering he was spotted just towards the northeast by about 200, 300 meters, it's not like he's going to be Houdini and like teleported himself out of the shackles of that position along the J line. You'd have to be pretty silly to not realize where this griller is. But in these kind of situations, that's what you just got to hope for. You kind of got to hope that your team, or your enemy team, are a little bit stupid, and that your team probably have been a little bit stupid getting into this situation. But nightmare scenario, boys and girls. That is the highest damage per minute medium tank in the game, with now a fully flexible turret, getting you into close quarters combat with a batch at 15558 on the enemy team. How do you handle this situation as well with 2 FVs on the enemy team who might one-shot you if you make one false step? Well, funnily enough, it just has to be aggression, right? You got 10 seconds reload on the bat chat, and I love how Sigurd is playing this. Now, the enemy team, you might be saying, well, the FVs could be anywhere. Yeah, you're right, the FVs could be anywhere, but here's the thing, you have 0 chance of winning a situation where you're down in a 2 versus 4 with only an artillery without playing aggressively. And beautiful shots there by the batch at 15558. And Sigurd says that I'm going to help you, but actually meant to press his F4 key to say thank you to the batch at 15558. And it was just beautiful. Going around that corner, it was always a risk. But the thing is, in these situations, you have to take risks. You have to make plays. If you don't take risks and you don't make plays, the situation is just going to compound itself and get worse and worse and worse, especially in a tank that doesn't have its armor to be able to fall back on. If you're in something like an autoloader, in something with a tremendous amount of armor, maybe you could just wait and for the enemies to kind of like wash upon you and then use your armor intelligently. But by taking that risk, they managed to now shut down the batch at 15558, catch the FV405 out in the open, hoping that the batch at 15558 on their team is going to be able to help out. And we see an intuition switch here to an HE shell, which rolls for 969, and that's not even that high of a roll, as the average damage is 950 here. That now means that the FV405, because of the field mod that they've taken to be able to lower their hit points, is now going to be a one-shot for Sigurd if they fire an HE shell. Interestingly, Sigurd's actually going to make an AP shell switch here because they don't want the bad RNG, and that's going to allow them to finish off the FV405 with no RNG. And notice that the FV215B183 on the enemy team shuts down their batch at 15558 hero. And so 4 kills apiece against both of these top tier tank destroyers. Sigurd's now on 1,176 damage with 891. All they need to do is put in one more shot to smash QuickyBaby's damage record, and oh, bet you didn't see that coming. Absolute heartbreak, and congratulations to Sigurd on getting the highest damage of any of the NVEST members in the month of June with this cracking game. And man, this was quite the heartbreak against the FV215B183 at the end of the game. Now, did Sigurd do anything wrong by pushing through that bush? No. Here's why. Here's what I think Sigurd was thinking. He pushed forwards into the bush and then pushed deeper into the tree because he expected the FV to be trundling up to go get into close quarters combat. Remember that Sigurd had to shoot that FV215B183 2 times, unless he rolls like a 1 in 20 to high roll the 750 there, to be able to finish him off. And in that situation, you've got to think as if what the enemy, what they would be doing in these kind of scenarios. And I think Sigurd's made the right call that the FV is most likely going to be sneaking up and not just sitting in a bush and trying to get an ambush. That's what the FV did. The FV sat there, and unfortunately Sigurd just pushing around the corner to try and spot the FV, to stop them getting into close quarters combat, to allow them to be able to make those 2 shots, just wasn't quite the right roll of the dice. And that's the thing. Earlier, when we saw him go after the K91, it was a risk. It was a risk that paid off, and it was the only risk to be able to get this done. And I think that still in the situation, that was the best play, to have a look to see if the FV was coming up. It wasn't the roll of the dice that Sigurd needed. But man, what a game. 13,000 combined with the assistance there and 11,000 damage. Sigurd, this was an absolute heartbreak. But congratulations to you on winning the highest damage total in the NVEST clan of June. So our next NVEST hero is Olivand. And Olivand managed to get more experience than anyone else. I think it was, the requirements were above tier 5 or above tier 6 or maybe tier 8 plus. And the fact that Olivand has managed to get more experience when they're playing a tier 9 vehicle and a tier 9 tech tree tank at that. And I just had to alt tab there to check that this was the highest experience, because some of these entries were in like 10 base experience or like 100 damage between what was number 1 and number 2. But managed to get the highest experience in a tier 9 tech tree vehicle. More than people were able to get in those tier 8 premiums, for example. So, the AMX M451. Just how high will the base experience be in a tier 9 heavy tank? Well, you're going to have to wait and see. So, of course, it's going to be a tier 10 game where the tier 9 tech tree vehicle is doing so well, right? Well, not that it's doing so well overall, but doing so well on its experience. And that is, not a lot of people realize this, but you actually get more experience for shooting higher tiered vehicles than you do for shooting lower tiered vehicles. Now, I'm not 100% certain whether there's a penalty for shooting tanks that are lower tier than you, but I absolutely utterly know that there is a bonus for shooting tanks that are higher tier. And I believe it's 10 or 20%. So if you're a tier 8 vehicle shooting a tier 10, you're actually getting 20% more experience than you would have if you'd been shooting a tier 8 vehicle. But I don't know whether you're going to get minus 20% if you're a tier 8 shooting a tier 6. That would be a question which I would pose to the community. But still, that means there's great opportunity for Olivand to be able to rock and roll in their AMX M451 against vehicles like the Stinger, right? And I tell you what, rock and roll, what's up with that min roll, man? What's up with that min roll? Looks like a lot of these NVEST members not using shell tuning on their loaders. But you know what? You've got to use what you're going to use. Or maybe just Olivand hasn't really got a very experienced loader on this vehicle. One thing they do seem to be experienced is that Olivand is used to spamming the gold and also using a directive here, really try-harding on the AMX M451, which is interesting because they've already managed to get a third mark on this tank. So what keeps them playing? Maybe they're going for 100% marks of excellence, or maybe they just think, yo, this is the tank to be able to win that gold. And that is where the gold from our maneuvers victories went. I think the clan got something like 15,000 gold or something like that from maneuvers. And M4 decided that the best way to distribute the gold was with a fun competition as well, to reward the best games and generate some of that awesome excitement within the community. M4's doing a real good job of being a leader inside the clan. And a big thank you to M4 for organizing this, as well as all of the NVEST members who played their hearts out in these incredible games so that we could be able to enjoy it on YouTube, right? Okay, so let's get back to it. And that is, why the AMX M451? And a lot of you might be thinking, why is Olivand using the 120mm on this vehicle? That's because the 120mm absolutely destroys, I think it's the 128mm on this vehicle. You've got way better gold pen on this tank. And also you've got better aim time, better accuracy, better damage per minute. The only thing that you don't have is the alpha damage. And I guess you don't have the ability to be able to overmatch as well 40mm plates with this gun compared to the 127, I believe. Is it 127? It is a 127mm gun that you could use on this tank. I also managed to 3-mark my AMX M454 using the 120mm. I think that's the better gun than using the high alpha damage. But again, I guess it just depends on what your playstyle is, whether you want to be going against your opponents and not giving them any room to breathe, or if you're the kind of person who wants to kind of like sit back and wait for opportunities. And we can see here that this vehicle, it does pretty good when it doesn't give its opponents any time to breathe. And some nice marksmanship there by Olivand, managing to gracefully get that reticle up towards the E75's turret as quickly as possible and finding the weak point on the E77 there. One of the best players in the clan who they've won in the platoon system, but it's not a replay that I feel like it really highlights the platoon camaraderie between the clanmates, is Sikora. And Sikora managed to do very well in our maneuvers. Best player in the clan for maneuvers. And after the maneuver season, we asked Sikora what is like the one thing that he thinks that players can do to improve their game in World of Tanks. And a lot of it is lowering your sensitivity of your mouse. You have your DPI too high on your mouse. Having a high DPI on a mouse, big numbers is better, right? Not in the case of World of Tanks. You don't want to have it too sensitive so you're not able to control over the weak points and to be able to aim smoothly as you're traversing as well. But also still managing to be able to move that reticle quickly towards the target. So you want to have enough control, like Olivand does, to be able to still make those micro movements over your opponent's weak points, while also still not making your mouse so unsensitive that you're going to have either wrist strain issues, which you probably don't have to worry about if you're a young guy, or alternatively not actually being able to traverse your mouse quick enough with your really fast, snappy tanks like your EBRs, for example. And Olivand clearly has very good mouse control here. It's definitely one of the aspects of their gameplay that's impressive, and why they're just doing so much dirty work here. They're getting their reticle on the enemy tank quickly, and they're firing confidently before their opponents have a chance to fully aim at the weak points on top of this. Combine that with an AMX M451, which is an absolute chat of a tank at tier 9, and way better tier for tier than the AMX M454 is now, especially with the nerfs that were giving dealt to the AMX M454. And this thing, it's an absolute gem at tier 9. And I think the only reason why you don't see more of these is because it's not premium. And everybody's wanting to play their Rambos now. Everybody's wanting to play their E77s now. There are so many tier 9 premiums going into the game that vehicles which are incredible, like the AMX M451, and probably still better than those premium tanks in a way, in this scenario especially with a player like Olivand playing, manage to just start to become less and less popular, right? Because I think if you have the choice to play a vehicle that's 95% as good as a vehicle or 95% as fun as a vehicle but makes 50% of the extra credits, I think that's what mostly people are going to go for. So, tier 10 damage, epic game for a tier 9 heavy tank. It's still 10,000 hit points left on the enemy team. Ladies and gents, I'd like to highlight something here, and that is that Olivand is contesting HT15 for the Object 260 with a tier 9 vehicle. Most kinds of tanks that do this mission, it's going to be like your incredible bouncy games in your T110E5, or your mouse going in and taking 3,000 damage, which is going to be 3,000 out of the 14,000 that you have to be able to deal. Olivand has now managed to do one of the hardest missions in the game in a tier 9 tech tree tank, and they've still got the vast majority of their hit points left. Unfortunately, assistance doesn't count for this mission, so it's just raw damage blocked, and also raw hit points taken that Olivand is going to be hunting for. They're still down by 2 tanks, up to 7,800 damage now, and Olivand is deciding to go for it, to make the push play. This is bold, it's beautiful, it's aggressive, a good turn, a good shot in. E75 manages to damage Olivand's ammo rack through, I guess, the side of the vehicle there, but luckily with the repair kit not off cooldown, Olivand's able to say, not today, E75, get that working and finish off the E75's lower plate. And I can only imagine that was very satisfying. I mean, look at this graveyard that Olivand has created. You don't do 8,500 damage without putting a few headstones down. And let's just say that the stonemason in NVEST has been very well employed with how many tanks that Olivand and how many tanks that everyone inside the NVEST community has been butchering over the month of June. It's been a beautiful thing to see so many people coming in and topping the damage, topping the experience here and there, managing to like take that crown. And while the gold amount that was up for grabs, it's not exactly like it's a substantial reward. Hopefully the immortality of YouTube glory is what the real reward here is going to be. And Olivand now only has to hit just a couple more shots to be able to do HT15. Now this mission, you don't have to survive. You don't have to survive even to do it with honors. Some of the missions you have to do it with honors, but this one you don't. So in theory, Olivand could just like drive in right now and get the mission done if the team is going to win. And wow, all of the enemies now being spotted on low amounts of hit points. And again, I say this every time, but there are still people in the community who don't understand this, and that is that the hit points on the enemy tanks do not update unless they're within your render distance. So don't be confused at the end of the game. if you think like they're all on full hit points or your whole team is on full hit points, don't be surprised when they reappear and they are not, because it's your render distance, which is what updates the hit point total at the top of the screen and also on the minimap. So Olivand now one shot away. 10,000 damage in a tier 9 tank, 5 kills. Oh my gosh. Imagine. Tier 9 tech tree vehicle destroys a third of the enemy team and smashes a damage record for many people that they would be looking to try and achieve at tier 10 to be able to get that magical 5-figure sum. Well, imagine getting a 5-figure sum in a tier 9 tech tree vehicle, and imagine getting a 5-figure sum in a tier 9 tech tree vehicle while M4 is running an NVEST competition, right? Okay, so now Olivand is just a bit worried. They've actually got to get their team across the finish line here, because maybe they've done this without honors and maybe they're trying to do it with honors. They've definitely done 25% of the hit points, so all they have to do now is make sure that a win happens. And if a win happens, they'll get this mission done with honors, and that might be the difference for them maybe getting the 260. They probably already have the 260. Or maybe it's a case of just doing it with honors and being able to get the special badge, right? Because that's what everybody's playing World of Tanks for, those special badges. So it looks like Olivand expected that Batchat to be in there, or maybe the 1390 to be in there, actually, considering the 1390 hasn't been spotted at all this entire game. So not wanting to drive out in front of the possible Batchat, unfortunately for Olivand, the 1390 is actually going to be spotted, and they're going to be spotted in an AFK scenario. And so that is going to be 1,200 hit points that Olivand is not going to have had an opportunity to be able to grab. The Progetto looking to be able to finish them off, also worried about the Batchat. The T-44-1 spotted in the scenario, and the Batchat nowhere to be seen. Where do you think the Batchat will be? Probably up there, right? That Batchat severely crippled, also going to be caught by the Type 68, and all that's left is a T-44-100. But can our hero Olivand manage to get into position to catch it? Maybe. Come on, just poke. Every experience counts. Think about the gold, right? Nah, Olivand realizes that's the one that got away. And so, actually, the end of this game was really underwhelming. And that's not because of the lackluster play that Olivand managed to put through. I think it was very tight, very controlled play. They expected the 1390 to be spotted in that position. And I don't think it was wrong to play in that fashion. Just really unlucky that the 1390 was AFK and that there was no more opportunity to continue that absolute onslaught that we saw earlier on in the game. But Olivand, what is there to say? You managed to get, well, we'll see the exact experience total in a second. And outside of the, Olivand spammed gold. Whatever, Olivand spammed gold. Irrelevant of spamming gold in this situation, this was still an incredible game of World of Tanks for a tech tree vehicle, just absolutely dominating in that kind of nightmare tier 10 scenario. Beautiful tank. Definitely don't sell this one when you get the AMX M454, otherwise you'll be very disappointed. And yeah, just hope that one day we can play as good as Olivand can inside this monster tier 9 Frenchie. So once again, congratulations to Sigurd on that 11,176 damage, 4 times what anyone else on the team was able to achieve, and they actually got more experience than all but 3 players on the enemy team. And when we include the Courageous Resistance, this was a whopping ace tanker. It was also Sigurd's 3rd Mark of Excellence. What a way to bring in a 3rd Mark of Excellence with an 11,000 damage game for that high caliber Confederate and that tank sniper medal. And what a heartbreak for that FV215B183, who, to be fair, did 5,000 damage and got 5 kills, which is a great game of World of Tanks to shut down Sigurd there. And then Olivand, just how much base experience was it to win the competition? 2,041, boys and girls. 2,041 base experience. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting amounts of base experience there for Olivand. And again, the only thing I didn't like was that 158,000 credits spent, but they still made 16,000 credits profit, as well as having a 10,000 damage game. Again, 4 times what anyone else on their team was able to achieve. It was a monster game for a monster tank, for a monster player. And NVEST, they just shock me. They just shock me, boys and girls. These games, these great games that NVEST will be having, absolutely shocked me with what they were able to achieve during that month of June. And an honorable mention must be made to John Yor, who also managed to get the same amount of base experience as Olivand did. 2,041. You couldn't script this. But, I mean, maybe this is sad, but a 10,000 combined game in a Borask. It was a good round, but totally outshined by the 2 tech tree achievements here. So, once again, NVEST, massive shout out to all of you for taking part in M4's awesome competition. These games, they truly did shock me with how awesome some of the entries were. And I'm really looking forward to getting to play with all of you, hopefully in a few months if Wargaming are going to announce the next maneuvers. And I'm sure that a few of you out there are going to be saying, oh, how can I join NVEST too? There's no easy way to say this. The clan is full, spots are really tight, and so the only players who really have a chance of joining NVEST are very hardcore maneuvers players who have probably 20 competitive tier 10 tanks, more likely 40 competitive tier 10 tanks, and would want to play for the entirety of the next maneuvers season in one of the teams. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below, what is the best tech tree tank that you've ever had a game in? I think for me, it's probably still got to be like the Skoda T50 with that ridiculous Fadens medal that I managed to have on the Sand River map all of those years ago now. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.